It's really great to be here. When I was asked to make a speech about Crossroads, I first said to myself, well, it's a great topic. But after a while, my excitement left its place to worry, and I started to think, what am I going to tell in 15 minutes about Crossroads? So having so many crossroads in my life, I decided to tell you my own life story. I was born in Ankara as the second child of a bureaucrat father and a housewife mother. The city that I born has a very important impact in my destiny. I was born there, I had my education there, I found my first job there, I established my company there, I got married there, I gave birth to my sons there, and now I am the Member of Parliament of Ankara. Besides, in Turkish Republic history, Ankara is the symbol of independency and revolution, which is an essential part of my character. So Ankara is a very strong, I have many strong bonds with Ankara. During my childhood, technology didn't manipulate our lives so much. For example, when electricity cut off, we used to have heart-to-heart talks with our parents. We used to sing songs with my sister. Today, let me try to give you a scene about our home. Four of us sitting together, all of us having a computer in front. We have some tragicomic scenes like I ask a question to my son, and he replies me as, Mom, I just sent you an email regarding to this. Haven't you received it? Okay, joking aside, despite living nested with technology, we care about taking some time off for each other without technology. My mid and high school years were the times that imposed me the importance of friendship, sharing, and also the sports. And my university years passed with asking many questions. I was questioning my future, my country's future, and the world's problems, so I had many questions in mind. While I was studying, I also did some extra work, like making translation and giving some private lessons in order to sponsor myself. For instance, I was really very stubborn in trying to get the results of my efforts. I was teaching maths to a son of a doorman as a social responsibility, as a favor. And, in the first lesson, he subtracted 1 from 10, and he got the result of 0, because he was writing 1 under 10th digit. So at the beginning, I got very disappointed, but, I tried my best to make him love maths, and I tried to motivate him with chocolate and toasts, and at the end, he passed his exam. And believe me, I was the happiest. And that made me understand that the road to happiness goes through making the others happy. After I graduated, I attended many interviews for different companies. Back then, I was willing to work for Unilever so much that I remember feeling very happy when I was invited for the 3rd interview. I went to the interview, and I was lucky because they asked me what I think about the campaign of advertisement campaign of Rejoice. And we had talked about this campaign in our advertising lecture, so I said many positive things about this campaign, and I was trying to glorify the product as well. And after I left the interview, I was sure that I got the job. But the next day, I got a phone call, and I learned that I was refused. Later on, I found out that Rejoice belonged to the competitor of Unilever. That's why I was rejected. But that bad example, that bad experience, taught me a lesson on the significance of getting prepared. And now today, I never enter and get into an appointment, a meeting, without being hardly prepared. I also remind myself the phrase, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Later on, I started to work at Koç Holding as with an appealing management trainee title. We would be subject to rotation amongst Koç companies and we would be trained to become a manager. I was working in a very reputable company, so I knew that I was lucky. I knew that I found a very good job, but I felt confused, complicated. You know, in life, I ask myself, would I be happy enough if this is the last day of my life? In those days, my answer to that question was not yes. The job that I was doing was too technical, but I wanted to do something that will touch to the lives of the others. In the period I was questioning this, I met human resources sector, and I established my own company, one of the first human resources consultancy companies of Turkey, at the age of 24. Back in those days, the term human resources was not very well known, so I had many difficulties. And also my friends and my family couldn't understand why I left my comfort zone and moved to an unknown world. I told you that I had many crossroads in my life, and this was one of the crossroads again. I mean, I had two roads in front of me. One was a highway, a very predictable, preferable, and a smooth highway. And the other road was a compelling, a challenging, a foggy pathway. I choose the second one. First 5 years was the hardest, full of sweat and tears. I was trying to impose companies the importance of human resources, but as I told you, my profession was not very well known. So I had many difficulties. For example, I visited the manager of a company and made him a presentation. He listened to me carefully, and then he introduced me to the others. Let me introduce you Mrs. Nazlıaka. She is the founder of Human Rights Company. Of course, human resources and human rights have many overlapping issues, but I have to admit that it was a very disappointing time for me. At the beginning, I first learned how to manage my business, and then I learned how to manage my team. Then I understood how important it is to pull your team up while you are promoting yourself and your company. New projects gave birth to new offices, and new offices brought new projects. Thanks to being one of the leaders of the sector, my company and I started to get awarded. During those experiences, I covered a long distance so far, and I have learned it is good to have an end to journey toward, but it is the journey that matters in the end. When I left Koç company, I knew that I refused to be the small fish in the ocean. When I established my own company, I was again a small fish in a lake. My experiences taught me that the important thing was to be the fast fish rather than being the big one. While I was on the path of becoming workaholic, I met with my husband. a perfect man, calm, fine person who is really balancing me. And after I met him, I started to question my priorities in life. We got married, and after 2 years, our family was growing 2 feet. During my pregnancy, I remained my busy schedule and figured out by planning plans, I can reach anything. That's what I believed. One day, I had an appointment with my doctor at 10 a.m. and with a journalist at 1 p.m. The journalist wanted to make an interview with me. So first I went to the hospital, and after the control, doctor told me that I was going to give birth that day. And I said, well, let me go for the interview first, and then I will come back to the hospital. Of course, he didn't let me do. But that was the day I mastered in the notion that there is no such thing as planning everything. While I was struggling during my business life, I have always celebrated 3 things: my family, my friends, and the opportunities to take for creating a social benefit. I always enjoyed touching people's lives, as I mentioned to you, so I started to work I took some roles in non-profit organizations and some social responsibility projects. But I had the biggest chance to change the destiny of others when I took an offer from Republican People's Party to get into politics. Well, it was a very exciting offer, but it was completely a different kind of life. I was always interested in politics, but I had to discuss the matter with my family first. Again, I had a crossroad. One was to remain my current path, which was, for me, close to perfect, and the other was to start a new struggle. In fact, my decision was obvious, but I had to deliberate this over with my family. I first talked with my husband, and he gave a very prompt answer, and he said, yes, I am behind you. I will try to do my best to make your life easier. And I made the same talk with my son as well, my elder son, who was 10 years old at that time. And he gave me a prompt answer as well. He said, no. Because I was his play friend, and he was newly getting used to his little brother, who was 2 years old. It was not easy, but at the end, I convinced him. Don't ask me how, but I convinced him. My biggest advantage, for sure, is my parents and my sister, who encouraged me as much as my husband. After I became a politician, my whole life has changed. It really needs a high dedication, a sincere dedication, and it's a very, very big responsibility. Every day and any moment, not any hour, any moment can be working hours for you. Despite all the difficulties and challenges, it was a wonderful thing to struggle for the best of your country. As I lay my head on the pillow each night, I ask the same question to myself: what have I done to make the best of my duty today? And now, I am on a crossroad again. One goes to remaining to work as a deputy. The other path is struggling at the local elections to become the first mayor of our capital city. As you all may recall, I started my speech by telling you how important Ankara was for me, how it had an effect on my destiny. And I also tried to mention you the values it added into my life. Now, I think it is my duty to add value to Ankara. So please wish me luck. And by the way, I keep asking myself the question, if it was the last day of my life, would I be happy with what I have done so far? So I wish you all a life with a yes to that answer. Thank you.